Hello and welcome to Dubai Trains, and welcome to another layout design video where I showcase the process and steps to design a layout that not only looks good, but also operates well. Hopefully this will inspire you or help you to make better layout designs. So for today's video, we're going to have a look at a very small layout. And it's not so much about the layout, but more about the process of figuring out which track plan and which size layout and benchwork would work the best for the client. So almost all projects start with a sketch, and here you see the sketch. And the layout will be in this area. It's 7 by 6 feet, and we can go 3 feet in. Luckily, the client is on a model in N scale, but this video is applicable to all scales. So looking at the old mantra of layout design, you come to all these different variants and types of track plans that you can have on your layout. You can have anything simple from an oval or a figure 8 to a loop-to-loop. You also have a folded dog bone design, twice around the room. And if you open any old book, then this is the mantra that's in there. The more modern style books don't really think along these lines anymore, but when you're designing a track plan for a small space and you want to have continuous running, then there's no real way around it. So let's get started. Here in brown is the benchwork, the dark brown is the ideal depth with a comfortable reach, and the light brown is the maximum space. And here you see a twice around the room. So if we start here at the bridge, then take the outer track, then you'll see it will go all the way around the layout, and then you eventually wind up back at the bridge, and then you dive underneath or over top, and then do a loop again on the inside. Now this sketch was made just to show what is possible and what it means to do it twice around the room. So it doesn't mean the track will be exactly like this with these radiuses, and the track shouldn't really follow the contour of the layout, but this is what it comes down to. So the upside is you have a long continuous running, but the downside is you have quite a lot of track. There's basically double track on the entire bottom side of the layout. The straights show where you can have, for example, a yard or a siding or some industries. This will give you a rough idea of what is possible, the size available, and this track plan. Going to another one is more of a, let's say, around the room design. You would have a more shallow benchwork and a kind of an island in the middle for the operator, and you need some kind of duck under or lift bridge or something here. The benefit of this design is you'll have more options for prototypical looking track plans and scenery along the line, but it does come at the expense of a more complex benchwork. And then we have another variant where we just basically have a figure 8. And a lot is possible with a figure 8. Again, there will be some kind of yard here, a siding, and why the siding is mostly on this stretch is because this is the longest stretch. This is the longest dimension. This is 7 feet. So you just have a longer siding if you put it here than if you would put it in this section. And note all the designs as well have some kind of turnout that goes to the staging. Then there was another variant. The client made this with a significantly more narrow benchwork, and it's basically a folded dog bone with 2 connecting tracks to connect to the dog bone. But he was cheating a little bit because this is not 7 foot, I think it's like 8.5 or something. So now we have all these different variants. And the question is, how would you decide on what works the best for you? And you just put it in a chart. So here we have the different variants: a narrow shelf design, deep shelf, tabletop, triangular donut. And here on the horizontal axis, we put the different things that were really important. I noticed that he was talking a lot about the longest run possible, room for scenery, and comfortable reach, and I wanted to test what was really important for him. So if you take, for example, the deep shelf, where you can do it twice around the room, that's this variant right here, then you have the longest possible run, because you go twice around the room. You have relatively a lot of room for scenery, because the shelf is very deep, but the reach is very uncomfortable, because it is so deep. Now the story wasn't quite as linear as I'm telling it right now, but you get the idea. We ended up going for a narrow shelf, and with a very simple figure 8 design. So let's have a look how we filled that in. So this is the entire track plan, but let's simplify it a little bit before we get lost, and take away all the scenery, and then give some functions to a different piece of track. So it basically is a figure 8, that's what you see here in black. And then here on the right, we have a long track that leads to the staging. So thinking in operations, this track can lead to an interchange yard, this can be a continuation of the main line, or anything like that. And then here in pink, we have a passing siding, Here in yellow, we have what I would call an industry support yard. So this is a yard with the sole purpose to support the different industries on or around this section, but basically on the layout. So how would that work in operations? Well, there would be one train coming in here from the staging, and I think I would just let it run an entire loop. So pass the passing siding, and then go all the way underneath, and then enter the passing siding, drop off and collect cars here from the yellow yard and head back. And then a different train would be switching this area. So it would have an engine terminal right here, and it would pick up cars and shuffle them around at the different industries, and then set the cars back here in the yard for the aforementioned train to come and pick them up and collect them from the staging. So that's quite a lot of fun, and you see from an operation point of view, you can really achieve a lot in a small space. So let's have a look at the scenery. Let's just start at the beginning. In the beginning is the engine terminal that is right here. And there's a little fueling facility, and next to the engine terminal is a scrapyard where they scrap old rail cars or engines and stuff like that. This is connected to the passing siding, and the passing siding also has a small passenger station right here. So behind the passenger station is the industry support yard, and on one track that leads here that's parallel to the passenger station is a freight depot. And there's two other industries you can put on this industry support yard. Now, you would say, why are you putting industries directly onto the yard? Well, because this is a very small setup. We don't really have space to have a 6-track yard and then separate industries spread around the layout. So we're just going to confiscate one or two of the yard tracks, depending on how busy it is, for industries. So sometimes there might be a car spotted here and you can't use this section of track for classification, and other times you can. But 3 tracks, of which 1.5 dedicated, I think will be more than enough. You also have some overflow capabilities here on the passing side. So every yard needs a yard lead. That's basically this extended line that continues with a bridge over the figure 8, let's say, into the bushes. On the other side of the passing siding is here a coal trestle. I think a coal trestle will fit nicely because the landscape is going down a little bit. And the landscape is going lower because here the track goes underneath the bridges. So talking about these bridges, we chose to let the train go underneath this section of track opposed to over it, as it will just look, I think, a little bit more natural to have a valley here and let the train disappear in the valley and in the cut in the land, opposed to making some kind of structure that doesn't really look natural just to cross 2 tracks. And this way it will blend more in with the scenery that looks realistic. So that's what's happening here. And I also added a road bridge here. Let's finish this top section. Here at the back is a industry spur, and this has a oil refinery in it. And I put an oil refinery here because you can have some large oil tanks standing straight up. This is great because it will give some more depth. Let the train on the main line hide behind it. And it's a reason to have oil tankers on your layout, which is also a nice little variation in cars is always nice to see. Now on the right, there's a lot happening, a lot more than meets the eye initially. Let's start here with the staging. And I intentionally let the track that leads to the staging to be quite long. So it branches off from the main line, so it looks like there's a separate branch line here that eventually ends in staging. And because it's longer, you can use this as a yard lead to switch to staging if you would like to do so. And we added a passenger station right here. So now we have 2 passenger stations where you can have a little passenger operations if you choose to do so. Now, just after this turnout here, the line actually starts to enter a grade and goes downward. And it continues to go downward to about this area. We're at the lowest point of the layout. So this whole middle section is actually a separate level. So the track is lower than the main line here, but not at the lowest point. We bend off, and we have some extra trackage here just to level out, and we have a switchback. And this switchback leads to the main industry on the layout. So this could be the reason why the industry support yard is there. And this is something steel related. So we would use here the Volcan kit from, I believe, Walters. That's what's drawn in here. So we have a little shed on this left track and the actual structure on the right track. Here we can add another offloading platform and that. Here I added a standard merchant street, and this will actually also camouflage a little bit these 2 tracks here in the back and create a sense of depth. And then heading on the road over the tracks is a gas station. And here at the front we have a row of houses. So this street would also be lower than the main line and slowly head up over the bridge. So you see in this small, compact 7x6 feet space, we fitted an entire layout. Now, do want to note the radiuses are relatively tight at 11-inch N scale, 22-inch HO scale. So you do want to be working with 40-foot box cars and small 4-axle diesels. I wouldn't put any 85-foot passenger cars on this layout. And here is the layout schematic, and you see it's basically an oval, yet we have so many operational options and opportunities in storytelling that we can do with a small track plan. Now you can download this track plan from my Patreon page. So if you're in YouTube, just go down, go to show more, and then here go to Patreon, and then here you come to my Patreon page, and if you select the apparently most popular coupler tier, then you have full access to my track plan library, where you can download not only this track plan, but all the other track plans that I have done on the show. So do have a look, do consider that. You can also support the channel for as little as $1 per month. Now if you're interested in the layout design of my own layout, check the video you see on the screen right now. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.